almost always with this little bit of a twist, and it's usually a good time. We are spawning here in the bottom right. Start things off for Team Alpha X. He's the Red Protoss, Astrea.
And spawning over the top left, as our Blues are playing for Team Shopify Rebellion, it is Scarlett.
Such a cool team. I'm really glad they made their way in esports.
Yeah, it's super nice that they've made such an impact in StarCraft 2 specifically, right? Like, I was at the Home Story Cup 20, where the big announcement was made that they doubled the prize pool, and that was for a tournament they weren't involved in. Now they've just doubled the prize pool for every weekly cup here for the year, and just, yeah, got super involved. They've even got TLO as their coach. It's just very nice to have them.
Definitely. We have Alpha X repping Astrea, which has been a team of a lot of up-and-comers. I know, Katz is talking about Astrea back on Root, and that was actually a great little, origin story, if you will, right? But now Alpha X has been championing him for a little while, and they have actually gotten an eye for talent. Astrea seems awfully happy there. He's become quite a beast of a player since his career, or his time in Korea. Career. And that can sometimes not be the case, right? Sometimes people go over, they feel like they've improved, but then the actual results when they come back don't really show it. It's kind of been like a common sentiment. But Astrea, it really felt like that was one of the turning points where I guess he just, I don't know, really worked on his fundamentals as well, because that was what was lacking. Back when it was 2018 or something like that, Astrea was a fun player, but even when he took some leads, he'd lose it because he would make awfully silly decisions, honestly, and not really have the best macro, but he's fixed everything. He's a very solid player. Still tricky, though.
He certainly is still tricky. He has his own swing on things, but his micro is very clean. Like, the way that he uses his blink stalkers and whatnot, it's very cool to see, and he's very charismatic as well. Anyhow, getting into this game. So the Probe Scout was nice and early. He has gone for the low ground gateway summon. It's called Warloff, and will be chrono boosting out his first adept, and it just shows quite a bit of respect to his opponent, just scouting nice and early, trying to get the hatch block off, which he did do, but Scarlett, unfazed, takes the natural on the third location, the forward location, and Astrea will be opting for a Twilight Council.
Now that third is nice and close to Astrea's rallying point, all right? Depths are going to come forward. Now we'll actually see what it is. It's certainly something that Scarlett has been weak to in the past, literally having a clan tag named Adepted for a while alongside the 1000 King or whatever clan that it was. But it can also have a drop, actually. Archon drops have kind of been coming back. I mean, just a little bit every once in a while. And Astrea certainly can be the one type of player who plays old styles and new styles. Even though he's not one of our oldest players, he has been here for the entirety of Legacy of the Void.
Yeah, I was looking back at his results between him and Scarlett, and his first few matches actually against Scarlett back in 2015, he did end up the victor, which I found surprising. Scarlett is going for a very early Warren here. It's not always a sign of being super aggressive. Usually it's about being safe and what have you. But yeah, you nailed it. He is going for a Dark Shrine, which isn't super orthodox these days. Very often it's like either Stargate or Adept, but yeah, I'm curious because I saw Drogo do this build quite a few times against Zerg and didn't work out too well for him. I'm excited to see what Astrea can bring to the table, but I don't think he'll have much chance to do much with it because Scarlett seems more than prepared.
Right, yeah, she is already building units, but it's not. I am still wondering if. Well, I mean, she's got Spore Coils on the way. I don't know. She is going to be well protected. I was wondering if it was maybe a misconception about Adepts, but it is some Adepts. There's also going to be a couple of DTs warping in. She's already on top of the Warp Prism. Already has some units. Spore Crawler is done at the third base and just goes back into droning, knowing she's pretty much got this on lockdown.
Yeah, very clean play by Scarlett so far. Granted, Astrea didn't lose any of those DTs, which is also great. And I mean, this isn't the end of all of this. Astrea is probing. He's even taken a pretty early third behind all this as well.
Those DTs actually head into the main base where the Spore Crawler wasn't done. Scarlett, she got the most vulnerable places covered. The third and the natural is where DTs would usually walk in. and perhaps not giving enough credit to Astrea just actually leapfrogging into the main. It got a little awkward, but a backup Spore Crawler was there. Only 2 drones fall, and the Warp Prism, well, now it's going to be ferrying Archons.
I am loving Astrea's play this game so far. I know like not a hell of a lot has happened, but this wasn't a super committal. He didn't just like kind of, you know, Rambo in there. It's all been handled with a lot of finesse, and the third by him is so damn early. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, yeah, Scarlett could have handled things better, but Astrea's build is very in your face and also very greedy behind it.
Well, if he can get away with it, the more power to him. That's what was the power of the Archon build is not necessarily that the DTs would get that Spore Crawler down and win the game. Like, that was very few of the games, actually. It was the idea that with Archons harassing and scouting and also defending, they could track an attempted Roach counter and provide, 2 Archons to the defense. It was supposed to be a very, very solid build, but kind of like with the 2-1-1, it just got so figured out. Like, it was the thing that all Protosses were using 90% of the time for a couple of months there. And the Zerg players were like brushing it off and maximizing their economy while doing it, and became difficult to macro out well. But you bring it in every once in a while, maybe it throws off the Zerg a little bit. Maybe you get the cheeky DT attack, but point is you can macro quite well behind it. That's actually more so what it's about.
Certainly is. So far, though, I don't know how many queens have fallen in this game, but the number is just growing and growing. 4 queens. It's a perfect game for Astrea so far, not losing a single unit. And, that's what you absolutely hope for as a Protoss player.
This is, can be a little scary, though, because I've said this about Zest. I've been like, wow, these Archon drops are amazing. He's playing perfectly. And then he just gets bopped by a Roach all-in. So, don't be Zest in this case, Astrea. Actually continue playing this perfect game, barely saving that one very weak Archon. Scarlett is up to a decent number of drones. 4th base is about halfway done, and she is going to add on a Spire as well, and that could actually be very tricky, but also very not worth it right now. 200 into a Spire that won't help against Astrea's attack. He's hitting just shy of +1, but he's got 2 Immortals, 2 Archons, and a lot of charge lots. Scarlett is making Roaches now to defend, but that is a great Protoss army if a couple of force fields were available, But without that many force fields, I feel like Scarlett's going to be all right.
Yeah, and Astrea gets the scout on that Spire as well. I don't know where that hallucination came from, but he is very on top of things right now. So he immediately starts up +2, Blink as well. This game is definitely going to be tricky from Scarlett from here on, and Astrea, again, is just going to continue with the aggression.
I like the way that he split up his army once he realized the actual front attack wasn't really going to cut it. The Adepts are still threatening that 3rd base. The War Prism threatens the main all of the time, as long as that thing lives, although the Spire is close to finishing. And then the army just went back home to grab a 4th base, which puts them at, fairly even bases. Scarlett's only recently finished, so Astrea's playing one heck of a macro game, and he's even gotten a better macro, a better economy for a little while. But what about that Spire? It can be so tricky for the Protoss player to actually know what's coming out of those eggs. Like, they know it's possibly Spire units, and a lot of them, but sometimes it's only 8, and then into the Ling Baneling Roach Ravager.
Yeah, the real issue for Scarlett here is her transition to anything more meaningful. It's going to take some time. Like, even if these mutas do buy time, she's on a Roach Ravager army, which is by no means weak. But this army of Astrea, he didn't have to go into a big gateway army to try and hold things off initially. This army, that's 5-6-ish Immortals and the same amount of Archons. It's very, very powerful.
I feel like Astrea has done such a great job, not even just tracking Scarlett. Like, he's not the one that's following her lead, but just the game has been so seamless for him, it feels like. Whereas for Scarlett, although she hasn't taken that much damage, aside from a brief hiccup of the DTs, still feels like as a Zerg player, she hasn't gotten into her prime status, not maxing out on Ling Baneling Ravager. So the mutas, not really doing a whole lot. The Roach army looking less and less intimidating as time goes on. You want to see a lot more Banelings. We do have a hive started for Scarlett, so she is advancing her technology, but Astrea is maxed out with one of the best Protoss armies on the ground, and he could definitely make an attack.
And he's respected the muta count here, Zombie Grove. That is a lot of Stalkers. I think he realizes the mutas is not going to get beyond this. so he can completely focus on the anti-ground army. And yeah, I mean, it's a poxy little flock of mutas now, and he's marching across the map. His time, like, he knows that he has a really damn good army to go up against. And his macro, by the way, his minerals and gas constantly low this game.
Scarlett is maxed out, but still waiting on some banelings, still waiting on some upgrades perhaps as well. An aggressive blink forward does put the Stalkers in harm's way, but a couple of force fields actually keep the banelings back. The Archons actually get a lot of them killed. They finally roll into some of the Immortals, pop their shields, but that's a lot of Scarlett's army already dead and gone. The Ravager's a little bit vulnerable. There's the blink forward to actually take advantage of that as Astrea smells blood in the water, thinks he's got this. Another aggressive blink forward just to make sure the Ravagers cannot escape, cannot go back to reinforcements. And while Scarlett, had an okay supply, it was quickly plummeting. GG, Astrea with such a strong performance.
That was very impressive, actually. Like, even though I predicted Astrea would win 3-1, in my heart, I was still like, oh my god, I think Scarlett could easily, like, turn this into a 3-0 herself. But Astrea, that game, literally 0 mistakes. Like, ice cold, no mistakes. And that's the Astrea that we all look forward to seeing, because whenever I watch Max Packs play, I get this same kind of feeling when I watch Astrea, but in a different way. It's just clean, calculated play. It's obviously very thought through, but it's also smart. Like, I don't see Astrea often take fights that it's just like, yo, you shouldn't be here. It's clinical. Like, that third base was about as early as it can be. And just like the 2 DTs, they ran in, they got spotted, instantly out. Like, it was all accounted for. And that makes me think that his play is not only just super decisive, but super clean as well. In that end fight, when he was blinking forward with the Stalkers, it was almost like trying to surround the army itself with the Stalkers. Just very, very clean play.
It was very intelligent, actually, which is not necessarily where the description that I go to immediately for Astrea. Sometimes I could call Astrea, 1,000 IQ as a meme because he has some roundabout ways of getting to a point, But that game was actually just like intelligent. That was the Protoss big brain. I'm smarter than everyone else because he read every situation perfectly. He knew when to back away. He played the mechanics perfectly, but the actual decision making, it was exactly the type of game that Protoss would love to say plays out every time, which is that they get to scare the Zerg, they get to control the Zerg, and that they move quicker than the Zerg, which is just very rarely actually the case. You think you're doing something correct and the Zerg's already up to 77 drones. No, that was actually exactly what the Protoss would want in a PvZ. Can he do it again? I don't know. Scarlett, I mean, she figures that she's a little down. Maybe she's not quite there on the mechanics. Can actually throw in a couple of curveballs herself. Excuse me, in the bottom left as that person. Shopify Rebellions, Scarlett.
And spawning over in the top right, playing for Team Alpha X, it is Astrea. Ooh. I Zombie Grub, because this game, no scout thus far, like not the early probe stuff. It is a pylon on the low ground for Astrea, but it's a gas first. That is the weirdest wall off that he's doing as well. That is... Yeah, okay, this is going to be weird. Like, before, when I've seen the gas first build, this became very popular for a while in PvZ, when they started doing the ultra fast DTs. But the fact that he kind of just went a bit ahead with that probe, then goes back again just to be as greedy as possible, I'm liking the mix-up from Astrea already in this series.
I'm looking mostly at the gateway. Like, the gas first coming out, yes, is an important difference from most typical openers, and keeping that probe at home as opposed to scouting is a risky maneuver that does actually make a difference in the build. I'm just stuck on this wall. This is Is there a reason the wall looks like this? Is he gonna show us why his brain is so big and wrinkled?
It does make a wall off. It's obviously got the vulnerable pylon, but it's like, if you only go for the gateway and the cyber core, it's enough for like the lings to get past. Like, you can't block it with one zealot. So initially safer to block things off. Later on, definitely not. But yeah, we'll see how that comes into fruition, I guess, because Scarlett, she will see this wall now, and I gotta say, yeah, her face, there was definitely a little bit of a grin there, a little eyebrow raise, like, oh, that's a hipster wall off if I've ever seen one.
Right, yeah. Astrea finally does get a probe scout just a little bit later, and it does see that everything's above board. Obviously, no chance to deny that natural, as Probe was very, very late scouting, which I'm sure Scarlett also picked up on. I mean, as much as she is willing to accept that the probe can and will block her hatchery in many of these games, when she actually gets her hatchery down, I mean, that's you notice, you're like, oh, no probe this time? Like, what is that? Could that possibly mean something? Right now, we do just have a Stargate for Astrea, so that's not really a lethal structure if it goes unscouted. Even if the Oracle swoops in, unknown, it usually doesn't get that many worker kills. But it is something that Scarlett's not necessarily going to know about. I don't know if she saw the Warp Gate. Actually, didn't check that timing, but if it was Stargate before Warp Gate, then that's usually a tell for the Zerg.
It's just so damn early, this Stargate. Like, it's about the fastest you can get, and it will be a Void Race to start things off. And Scarlett, given that, no Stalker was over here, maybe she can suspect that, you used that extra gas for something a little bit bigger than a Robo or a Twilight, right? And that is exactly what is going off. But still, that Overlord will run in. These Adepts, quick drone pull there by Scarlett, but, Astrea did not go for it. And Scarlett, she's completely in the know about what she's up against now.
Yeah, that's nice. Actually confirms the Stargate and, of course, the Void Ray as well was going to show itself inevitably to kill any Overlords that are around. But Astrea has just gone for a very clean build. He went for a Void Ray that's going to take out scouting, provide a little bit of defense, but then went for a third Nexus really as quickly as you possibly can. That was before even a second gateway was put down. And Scarlett, I don't know if she actually saw that. She didn't. So seeing it done when she does see it, it'll probably be done, is kind of sucky. I think you look at that and you're like, oh, you son of a... But you kind of have to live with it. She's not set up to do anything about it.
Yeah, this whole game has just been throwing Scarlett for a loop. Like, she got the Ling, she got the Ling speed. And I mean, it's only 12 Lings or so on the field, right? But that is Lings that were made to fend off some initial aggression that never really came. It was just the two Adepts constantly poking. And Astrea, again, feeling so safe behind everything to just be like, you know what? I'm going to throw up a third as soon as possible. Scarlett has forgone getting a super early Roach Warren, which is because she scouted the Stargate, realizing she didn't need it that haphazardly. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Scarlett does something cheeky this game, like a big Roach walk across the map, because she did just get quite a few gases for those Ravagers that she will be in need of.
And starting the lair actually earlier than I thought she would. So, I mean, it's always possible and even likely in certain metas. The problem does become that, like, generally if you're not set up to kill something, like you're not set up to kill a command center first or third CC, or in this case, one of the fastest Nexus you can ever get, by the time you do get set up, it's already kind of starting to pay for itself, and there is a chance for, in this case, the Protoss player to actually defend despite seemingly being very greedy. So the Oracle actually even gets in here and finds another undefended main base. Scarlett is shy of finishing. 5 drones go down, and would have gotten more, but the Pulsar beam runs out.
Yeah, and Scarlett, she's going for it now. She's running across the map. And this is before any of Astrea's upgrades have got going. He's actually going for Blink with all this, and did he spot this coming across the map? He does look like he is prepping for it, so I'd imagine so. Multiple cannon, shield batteries coming down, but he's even supply blocked here really hard as well, actually.
I mean, I gotta say, Scarlett attacking about as swiftly as she possibly can, even though she got a lair, it really was for the Overseer. Had she waited for, like, Roach speed, for instance, I think this is so much of an easier hold for Astrea. But as it is, he's got so many investments that aren't helping right here, right now. Even his Void Ray almost going down. The Natural already broken open as the shield batteries weren't quite done and really had nothing to use on them. The Stalkers have been corralled up against the Nexus. They're gonna go down. There's just so few units. I can literally just, like, track Astrea's units and what they can possibly do here. He's got like a total of 6 of them. He's gonna try and just evacuate the Natural and just let Scarlett have the game. GG.
I am gonna look again, because obviously that was very decisive by Scarlett, and that's what I mean when I say she can be very ruthless, almost shameless about what she does. Okay, I'm gonna check now how long Astrea was supply blocked for. So he's at 85 out of 85 at 540, and he doesn't start making a pylon until 5:55, so that is 15 seconds after the supply block before recognizing it. So it's going to take a full over half a minute to do anything with that. That's a massive error.
Yeah, that's a big error and at exactly the wrong time, as well as Scarlett had done one of the fastest attacks that she possibly could have, and it worked out absolutely perfectly. So it's a tied up series, real quick in that game too, but we are going to head to a quick 3-minute break. When we come back, it is continuation of this PVZ. It's all tied up as we head into game 3 on Jagannatha, Scarlett versus Astrea. Astrea plays one heck of a almost perfect PVZ for game 1, and then Scarlett comes in with the sledgehammer in game 2 and just knocks him on his ass real quick like. So what's game 3 going to look like? I don't know, but I think Scarlett is maybe thinking a little more along the lines of like, let's get this nice and quick, nip this guy in the bud, because he's pretty darn strong when it comes to the macro game. So I'm thinking something like Swarm Host, you know, something real dastardly for game 3.
It definitely well could be. Playing for Team Alpha X over in the top right, as I read Proros, it is Astrea.
In the bottom left for Shopify Rebellion, she is Scarlett.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice for Scarlett to even up in such a way. It would be nice if it was just like a straight up macro game that you win, but to just make sure that she lets Astrea know, like, no, you can't just kind of run a circus on me continuously kind of thing. I'm glad that she nipped it in the bud, but also that will maybe keep Astrea honest for the rest of the series. And that kind of thing's really important, because so far he definitely has played very greedy in the first game, and even in the second game it looked very solid greed, like hard to punish, but Scarlett took her time and before roach speed, as you said, and just absolutely went for it. And it was pretty brutal, actually. It didn't look like Astrea had any hope holding that, especially with that supply block.
Yeah, hard to believe the supply block was what really killed him, because I can't believe, like, you know, even 6 extra units would have been enough. But sometimes that is exactly what it is, because those very early game, very all-in, you know, queen pools can actually draw out for a long time, because the queens are still crucial for their transfuses and their anti-air. And if you can buy enough time, kind of play around natural and third, we have seen defenses. Yeah, we have. But yeah, it was too much. The supply block especially was too much. And Astrea, as you said, now has to play a bit more honestly for the rest of the series. Not going to get away with Supreme Greed, which, I don't know. I actually think this is the type of guy who will try again, despite getting knocked on his butt, and also despite playing against a person like Scarlett. Because, I mean, I think if we were talking to Astrea before the series began, and we were like, you think you're going to be extremely greedy? It's Scarlett after all. I think he'd be like, well, yeah, but I'm still going to try and, like, be a bit risky with it, right? Because everyone knows Scarlett can be aggressive. She can do the all-ins. It's not like Astrea was unaware of that even before the last game.
You know the difficult thing of handling a Protoss player like Astrea? It's you almost have to flip a coin when you're against him, because he's almost doing the same thing. Like, do I go to the greedy extent that I possibly can? Because if you try and match that and you play as greedy as possible, of course you can match it. But if you're going down some like middle road here that's not quite greedy and it's kind of safe, then he's just going to be ahead of you. Like, you almost have to make that call of, yeah, of course I'm going to do some queen walk across the map. Scarlett did a lot of good scouting that last game, which allowed her to make that kind of call. And this game, Astrea's going back to his roots from game 1. Will be a Dark Shrine opening.
It worked out very well in game 1, so it's not difficult to see why he would like to do it again. It also has variations, so that it's not such a simple, like, oh, I'm just going to macro again. And Scarlett's, not going to pick up on that immediately. It's a bit awkward. It's safe.
That probe, getting out of that, by the way, I'm very surprised that it lived. I really was like, okay, it's a dead probe. That's a nice pick off by Scarlett. But getting it away with that kind of maneuver, very, very nice by Astrea.
Very nice, yeah. But the follow-ups can be aggressive from this. Like, Astrea did have a follow-up, but like not really a follow-up. He had his pre-planned engagement at +1. There's actually a build where you actually chrono charge as well, kind of alongside of it. It's not that, but my point is, even though Scarlett's going to figure out that it's a DT drop, she can't just be like, oh, it's going to be exactly the same game as game 1. We're getting the hints of that because we have the God vision. We see the production, but Astrea, I think you have to be a little volatile and not just do the same thing over and over, but he's going to try and get away with it this time.
Yeah, I mean, this is a super greedy and kind of weird DT play. Like, he was only relying on 2 gases for a long time to get it going, and that's why his third base is so damn early.
Oh.
And this, the one spot that Scarlett doesn't have a Spore Crawler again, she's moving one up from the natural here. Oh, kind of sheep herding that Warp Prism away as well, but oh, this is still a bit of a nuisance for Scarlett.
Did you think it was a Depths? Because she did eventually see the Robo, and after a while you just know that it's not an Oracle or not Stargate because there's no Oracle. But yeah, again, a bit undefended in that main base. First game, it was very excusable because that was one of the last bases that would have been hit. In this one, I feel like it's there's nothing prior to that. There's no triangle setup that the third would have been hit first necessarily. I guess it was a 50-50 split depending on where Astrea sent his Warp Prism. But again, a little awkward of a start against the DTs.
Yeah, definitely. The one saving grace for Scarlett, though, all said and done, is 1 DT did fall. And the way that the gas lined up, the 2 DTs, they're meant to both survive. Then you come out with the Warp Prism, the 250 gas is ready. But it's kind of thrown Astrea off a little bit because he had to make just 1 DT, gets 1 Archon out, which is significantly worse than 2. And he started up Immortal production a lot earlier this game. So the aggression is definitely going to be, a little stunted by him. But yeah, I'm still liking his economic position.
even though we lost the DT, Astrea is still playing an almost perfect game, clearing up creep tumors, getting a couple of queens, whatever lings trying to run by and get hit by adepts, for instance. So it's still a very pretty game for Astrea, but I think Scarlett gets a prettier game as well, despite the actually extended awkwardness of the main. I feel like her droning is still pretty darn strong. I feel like the Spire is faster than the first game. I wasn't paying attention to the clock, however. But it feels a little more streamlined, a little more in the groove. Perhaps both these players are now so after 2 games. Yeah, Spire, 8 mutas into Ling Baneling Ravager. If she does it faster, she isn't the one that's defending like last time. She actually has some control over the engagement, and that's where Banelings get really scary.
Oh, definitely. And if we can bring up the resource loss tab just for a moment here. On Lightshade, it was like 1,500 resources lost for Scarlett versus 0 of Astrea. This game is obviously a different story. Scarlett's definitely getting into a game a lot less worse off. Wow, that was a bit of a mouthful.
Oh, you got through it, though. It was quite well done. The Spire is almost done. Astrea was able to get a hallucination at the exact right time, really, to scout it. This time, not the case. So that's just, I mean, again, I think it's just a faster Spire. Maybe Astrea wasn't thinking. No, yeah, there now is the double hallucination, which is going to scout the Spire, and Scarlett can't actually invest into the mutas immediately, knowing there is going to be a similar attack as there was on the first game. But if she's able to defend against this, then she can make the mutas actually initiate some sort of counter perhaps as well. Astrea is going to trap himself up in that high ground, looking to use those force fields, but Scarlett's kind of already on top of it. The force fields won't last forever.
It certainly won't. Astrea knows that. He's even warping in more sentries here to try and hold this position, which, if he does keep just renewing this, it is going to be super annoying. He's going for a zombie grove. He's just warping in nothing but sentries.
I mean, I guess so. It is working. The Immortals are powering away against the Roaches as they try and head up into the actual high ground. And the Immortals are also being microed by that Warp Prism. Finally, the hatchery goes down, but the force fields are out, so no recall will be available. Astrea is going to be forced to evacuate with whatever we can, which is going to be the Warp Prism. Barely, very barely. An Immortal off to the left was recalled as it was misrallied or thought it was in a better situation than it was. And that, gosh, I don't know about that one for Astrea.
Yeah, me neither. He definitely, he killed the base. It all was kind of fancy, but it was a lot of fancy, not necessarily really good, right? Like, that was so much gas going into those sentries, which I don't think are the best unit to have. And now Scarlett, she's got a pretty huge army here. And okay, Astrea does have enough to fend this off, and it is a good cost trade army. But the mutas, those are something that they're going to be on the field very, very soon.
Yeah, I mean, Astrea, he actually has to return home wounded, you know? Like, this isn't him just being like, yep, I did it. I did the thing. Now I'm going to do the next thing with all the patience in the world, which is what happened in the first game. He was able to kind of pressure and kind of show the army. Scarlett went, oh, shit, like, I can't do what I want. And then Astrea just played his game so well. Not here. Even though Astrea has a fine army right now, he is the one on the defensive. He is going to be held back for a while longer. And that's where Scarlett, you know, her mutas might still not do a ton of damage, but the mutas plus her presence on the map with an actual large ground army, you know, on Astrea's side of the map, that is a big difference from game one.
Can we have a look at the income tab for this game? Because I swear that Astrea has been mining quite a bit more for some time. And yeah, the income tab definitely shows that it's doing well in his favor. Scarlett has done a really good job of cashing up in the drone count. And the mutas are in the third base of Astrea now. Granted, there is a cannon here, but 10 probes do fall. So far, not too bad.
Pretty good use of the mutas so far. Now they're down to 6, so they could still definitely dive into a slightly undefended base and grab even more probes. You know, they can still track a Warp Prism should it go off to harass and whatnot. So I very much so like these mutas more than the first game. Scarlett, once again, heading towards that hive. It's about halfway done. She's rebuilt her 4th, is on a total of 5 bases, 84 drones. So she will have the ability to make a large Ling Baneling Ravager force and DreamHack on it at least once. But we are getting to the point where Astrea is also getting maxed out. He's finishing up his upgrade. He's dealt with the mutas for the most part. He is getting ready for the attack.
Yeah, he certainly is. Like that supply, it's approaching 200. Right now, Scarlett, this is as strong as she's going to get without just adding on more Banelings, given that she is supply capped. Throwing down a lot of Spine Crawlers as well defensively. If this game goes on from this point, we are going to get to the very late stages of the game, because I can't imagine them sticking on these kind of armies. This is going to be a huge surround from Scarlett, though.
Nice surrounds. Not going to get on top of that War Prism, but the Banelings do collide in with the Zealots. Now there's Stalkers and Immortals left, which are still very good units in this scenario. Some of the Immortals starting to go down as their shields have been popped, even one getting hit by the Corrosive Bile, but Astrea's army supply is holding very strong, because of course his army type is better. So at even, I think that Astrea can do a little more work here. Already happy grabbing that hatchery, but he wants more.
He certainly does. Scarlett's down to 4 bases now. Her mining is pretty okay. She's on 77 drones. Lots of Corrosive Biles, but nice blink out of the way for Astrea. His army's just better right now. Banelings are trying to come in here. Biles are going down. They're making the army move, which is buying her a little bit of time, but I think there's just too much Protoss here, Zondergrub.
And the Roaches and Ravagers were already cold after that first engagement, so the Banelings coming in didn't really help out. Astrea doing very well with this particular style, isn't he? Like the Archon drop does a pretty darn good job. This one game, I guess, a little bit worse, but still pretty darn good. And then the follow-up into the maxed out army is just, yes, Scarlett's not able to take the engagement well enough, which I really thought was going to be different this time around. I thought she was going to have maybe more of an opportunity for a surround or taking the engagement a little more in the mid part of the map so she could actually reinforce. But yet again, she's found herself defending at home near her reinforcing line. And if Astrea breaks her there, then she is actually just completely broken.
Yeah, Astrea's definitely looking pretty rock solid, honestly. Like, I know that he got busted game 2, but it was very much like to crack him, it really feels like you need to really go all in kind of thing, because it's greedy enough to survive against any of the macro plays by the looks of it. And that was even losing a DT and what have you, but I say that and then he went into Immortal production. It just feels very clinical. Like all his builds, the follow-ups and stuff, it feels very well thought out. And going up to 4 bases, it just all looked very clean. And from that income tab as well, we saw that he was actually in pretty damn good shape. He had shield batteries and cannons for the mutas, which still did a little bit of damage, but he just isn't getting slowed down at all by Scarlett.
And it is usually something we say about Zergs. You know, usually we're like, oh, the Protoss didn't slow the Zerg down. But obviously in this case, it is the Zerg being slowed down, not really Astrea. I also feel like, I don't know, and maybe, you know, I'll ask you, like, doesn't it feel like when Scarlett is maxed out, she's got a little bit of that creep spread, she's on a fairly sizable economy, do we not see some engagements go a little bit better for Zergs at that point? I feel like the composition itself, as well as the engagements where they happen, are actually a little off. Is Scarlett just on too many roaches? Should she transition over into Ling Baneling a bit faster, or a little bit more, or what? Because the engagements are looking too easy for Astrea, is what I'm getting at. I'm like, what is missing from Scarlett?
You might be onto something, because would you be able to get away with that kind of stuff against Reyna? Like, you know, Reyna on that kind of army comp, like, he's as scary as a Zerg on late tech tier 3, you know?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to judge and criticize, because a lot of it is about trying to survive a lot of the earlier stuff too, so you get kind of stuck on a lot of the roach compositions. That fight in the bottom right was definitely chaotic, weird as well. That was definitely a Astrea-ism there, I would say, that attack. And yeah, I think Astrea's gift so far is just making things uncomfortable while also having that clock on Scarlett, just letting her know that I'm playing as greedy as possible while throwing this at you. Like, you've got to keep up with me as opposed to the other way around, which very often a lot of the other Zergs, like Reyna, won't let you do that.
It feels like the Zergs such as Raynor and Serral, really, right, are able to take those kind of odd starts, odd engagements, use them as a stepping stone, and still get into a beautiful composition with a high chance of a comeback. But Scarlett is truly getting stuck on a unit composition that has a very low chance of bringing the game back into her favor. So maybe that'll be something that she changes, or maybe she's just going to bring out another all-in, as she is on her last life in the series against this guy in the bottom left for Team Alpha X. He is Astrea.
And playing for Team Shopify Rebellion, over in the top right, it is Scarlett. I do want to point out, though, like, this isn't necessarily Scarlett making mistakes at all. Like, I think these are just very good high-level ZVPs. And also, for those at home wondering, this is the winner bracket. The winner bracket semi-finals between these guys. So whoever does lose, they're not out of the tournament by any means. And knowing how good they both are, and they're both playing, actually, which is really nice to see, very likely they'll still end up in somewhere along the top 4 because, yeah, they're so good.
I think it is very important to point out that Scarlett is not playing like so incorrectly, right? That it is a matter of just being like, hey, Scarlett, like fix this thing. Oh, thanks. I'm like, no, that's not really going to happen. But it does help to prove just how much better Raynor and Cyril can be in those scenarios where it seems like they also get thrown off kilter. They also have some wacky starts to their ZVPs and always get to this composition that feels so deadly in their hands, but not as much for Scarlett, who I think is a lot deadlier when it comes to the aggression. As far as making the comebacks happen, obviously we got the Burrowed Baneling game, so we can't take away Scarlett's ability to make a comeback, but I do think it's a little less so in this matchup with the composition that she's pretty much forced to go for, as you were saying. Like, it's not wrong to go into roaches to defend the early pressure, especially since the threat of adept attacks are still here, right? Astrea hasn't thrown out that quite yet. So that's not where she's going to shine, is my point. You know, Ling Baneling, pure Ling Baneling, something like that, a really wacky, like straight to muta game. Those are the units that I attribute to Scarlett's like expertise. But roaches, I don't know, they've always felt like they shine in other people's hands.
Yeah, I get what you're getting at. I you know, when I'm watching these games, and you've really made me think about it, very often the way that I see Cyril, for example, utilize Biles is very much not as a damage dealer, but just to stop the opponent from dealing damage. You know those massive concaves of Stalkers? You kind of sprinkle the Corrosive Biles out a little bit, because every time those Stalkers are moving or blinking away, they're not shooting at you, which is a massive deal. So using them as damage mitigators, as opposed to just trying to land a big bunch of Biles on a cluster, which it felt Scarlett was doing a little bit. I think that's also one way that maybe their usage of the Ravagers is just a little bit different.
I will also just end this kind of, I guess, overall point we're making, which saying that Scarlett is still not getting the best of games where she gets to do her stuff like truly and entirely 80 drones, easy peasy, as many Ravagers as she wants. In fact, she's always been like maybe a little bit lower than some other Zerg's compositions with that. I brought up the Resident Enclaves. We finally have it. It's not a surprise that Astrea is going to bring it out in one game of this series, but to actually try and just get the series done and over with, bringing out one of the deadliest early game builds that Protoss has.
Yeah, Scarlett's changed up her build a little bit too. Like, her Roach Warren was bang on time here. It didn't start a second too late. I think it started bang on 3:30. And yeah, her scouting's been good. Even these Lings here, it's like, okay, what's going on? And every Ling matters, making sure that it doesn't die right there. Is she going for the 3 Ravager response? If so, I love it. This was popularized by, I think, was it Dom Ragu popularizing this, using the 3 Ravagers, just making the Warp Prism have to move continuously. And yeah, it does look like that's exactly what she's going for.
Just shy of that 3rd Ravager, actually. She's got 2. Oh, I guess she was maybe lacking gas when she tried to make the 3rd one. It's a bit awkward, but the Adepts are here. Can they do damage? They're already on top of the ramp, actually literally on top of the ramp. Not going to try and shade in to take a fight with these Lings. I guess the amount of units that Scarlett already had is a little bit... It's worth considering and reconsidering. And actually, at this point, Astrea is going to need to decide, do I continue with the Adepts, or do I just try and play this game out, since they weren't a deadly surprise. Scarlett, I think, in all the games, was a little mindful of this possibility, and this time she was spot on.
Yeah, she's nailed it. Even this natural not having anything in. Now, this is where Astrea can do a little bit of damage. Nice, quick reactions by Scarlett, though, not taking really too much economic damage whatsoever. I love the shade out into the Warp Prism, but, getting into that Warp Prism was a little bit dicey there by Astrea. Does take a bit of damage.
Scarlett sees the left attack with a forward creep tumor, so she responds quickly with the drone pool. Still going to lose a couple, and that's what Astrea really has to hope for, is that she's like super out of position, or that's Astrea's adepts can start to kind of add on little bits at a time. Some drones here, some drones there. Still not as good as 20 drones instantly. It's still better than absolutely nothing. I'm a little surprised that Astrea is continuing to warp in adepts, though. Back at home, using more warp-ins for that as opposed to, well, honestly, actually just going into more technology. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens afterwards. I didn't think that was what the plan was. Apparently it is for Astrea.
It might be some massive follow-up by him, because, yeah, you're right. Those adepts, and he's still warping them in. I would not be surprised, because Scarlett's been very good about her scouting. She knows that third is going up. She knows about this. Her scouting has been phenomenal, actually, with these Zerglings on the map. Now the probing is happening by Astrea, but for all this time, he was doing nothing but produce units. That third was almost a fake.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all of these adepts could have been into a faster robotics bay, a faster forge, but they can contribute to a more direct engagement with the Immortals. It still relies, like, there's not a whole lot of, well, there's a little bit of finesse with this type of engagement. As we see here, the adepts actually join up with the Immortals on the high ground, which is quite clever, and Astrea turns what can sometimes be a bludgeoning army into something more clever than it has the right to be, but the main base is seemingly defended at this point. Not many drones or any have gone down yet. There's a couple finally, but the adepts now are going to have to hope to be able to escape down the left side, maybe do a couple extra drones worth of damage. Astrea's follow-up, not killing Scarlett, that's for sure. Finally finding some damage.
Yeah, getting 10 drones here is pretty big. Nice shift clicking by Astrea. He had adepts in pretty much every mineral line at one point. Scarlett does hold. And all things considered, she's down to 56, or in fact, it's gone up now, but 58 drones versus 66 probes. Astrea's relentless with this aggression. But Scarlett, she's not down and out. She's absolutely keeping up with him, but I do think Astrea's adept control is very reminiscent of how Neeb used to do it when Neeb was at his peak. It's absolutely phenomenal how Astrea's doing this.
And usually you'd say that Scarlett has plenty of practice against it, but even against Neeb, against any other adept using Protoss, she can still struggle. And she did a little bit towards the end. I think the biggest bummer of this game is that Scarlett can't do a counterattack, or didn't choose to go for a counterattack. Her roach speed only just starts, so if she had decided, okay, I killed enough adepts, let's try and make something happen on the other side of the map, she wouldn't really have any reinforcements. And with Astrea keeping his Immortals alive, and adding on now disruptors, yeah, she probably couldn't have done very much. But there was a time where she was literally doubling or even more the army supply. That's what can happen when the adepts sacrifice themselves. It actually was not a weak point. Scarlett doesn't get to take any advantages there, just plays into the more of the macro game. Already up to about 90 workers as I speak, and yet again trying to get into that lane baneling portion as well.
This warp prism just handily moving into the main here, and does have quite the cargo. 2 disruptors do come out. How many drones are going to go down? 3? I thought it was going to go far better. This was, oh gosh, that is... Okay, recalls immediately, because their arm mute is just about top, but that was, yeah, ambitious is the word that I'm going to go with here, Zombie Grub.
It was ambitious, yes. It was already a weakened warp prism, and it went right into that main base. Was not shy at all. I would say I called it Astrea special to be so aggressive, but I do believe the trap is also like some follow-up disruptor play, so I always enjoy seeing it. Maybe be a little more shy next time. But this time around, it's the entire army, warp prism included. Scarlett's mutas are hitting a somewhat vulnerable Astrea 4th base, but there is a cannon in the main. Is Scarlett once again going to fall in the defense? I think she's fine this time around. Astrea is not the maxed out Archon-wielding Protoss that he was in the last few games.
But look at this movement by Astrea. Like, he got the damage done. He didn't linger at all. He was immediately back. And I think that's exactly what he was going for, aiming for. And Scarlett right now, like, her army doesn't really get too much better from this point. Yeah, she can add on Balings and stuff, but Astrea's really dancing around the map and just utilizing his strengths very well and his timings.
I feel like just the aesthetics of the Zerg army is so much better, though, the Muslim. Like, I see so many more, like, red Ravager heads than just roaches. I see a lot more Banelings, and I see, of course, Scarlett actually on Astrea's side of the map looking for somewhat of an engagement. If she can open up these rocks, she can set up for quite the surround, and that has certainly been what's missing from some of the previous games. Scarlett's going to go for it. Corrosive Vials to break down some of these force fields, really forcing the issue, but the Banelings were all clumped up, starting to go down to the Colossus, finally roll in. Are there actually enough of them? I doubt it. There's very few Zerg army units left, and Scarlett, she really pushed the issue, but she actually wasn't going to take the fight.
And GG is called again, Zombie Grub. And